Speak to Al Jazeera's Paul Brennan joins us now from London. Paul, as we were saying, the hacking has been with us for some time now, but it seemed unthinkable by even tabloid standards that this should be happening.
Indeed. Let's clarify here that the News of the World is Britain's biggest selling newspaper. It certainly proclaims itself so, and it feeds its readers a steady staple diet of gossip and scandal, largely surrounding, errant politicians, footballers who have extramarital affairs, and television stars who perhaps just want to get into the newspapers for publicity purposes. Generally, people turn a blind eye to the excesses of how they actually go about getting those stories, but things have taken a very much turn for the sinister in the last 36 hours as a result of revelations that the News of the World wasn't just dipping into the phone messages of these rich and powerful celebrities, but was also, it seems, targeting victims of crime, not just wrongdoers, but victims of crime, their relatives, and also potentially police officers as well. There is at least one case, one allegation being made that the News of the World targeted a serving detective in the middle of a very sensitive murder investigation. Now, this is not just illegal, but it's also raising the moral hackles of the public. And whereas previously people were sort of happy to accept the gossip, not asking too many questions about where it came from, now the wider public is starting to become genuinely outraged by what the newspaper appears to have been up to.
Right, and Paul, the News Corporation has launched its own investigation, but the choice of investigator has drawn some criticism, isn't it?
Well, yes. What the lawmakers here at the Parliament in the UK will debate this afternoon is precisely this problem. We've got the police who have an Operation Wheating, is the code name for it, Operation Wheating, ongoing at the moment. And yet, in the last 24 hours, we've heard from the News of the World that they've released emails to the police showing that senior officers were paid illegally for information. So that calls into the question whether or not the police can actually investigate themselves. Also, News International, Rebecca Brooks, who is the chief executive of News International now, back between 2000 and 2003, she was the editor of the News of the World. And yet she's now promising to clean up the newspaper and investigate exactly what went on back then. Well, can she realistically investigate herself? Well, many people believe not. And so there will be calls this afternoon by the MPs, the lawmakers here at in the Commons, to say we need an independent, perhaps a public inquiry into exactly what went on, and nothing else will do.
So the investigation, an investigation into this is ultimately the aim of this, an inquiry, a public inquiry?
That would certainly, well, Downing Street, the Prime Minister's office, is actually resisting those calls, saying that the investigation by the police is ongoing and we should wait and see where that comes to. Nevertheless, there are certainly opposition and some members within the ruling coalition as well who would like to see an independent public inquiry. But there are political sensitivities about this as well. As you said in the introduction, Andy Coulson, who was editor of the newspaper for 4 important years when this was alleged to have been going on, he was the head of communications for David Cameron, the current Prime Minister. And so it really does call into question David Cameron, the Prime Minister's judgment, because he was warned in advance. He was questioned about whether Andy Coulson was an appropriate person to head Downing Street's communications department, given his track record as a tabloid editor. Mr. Cameron said, no, we're happily satisfied that he is entirely clean, and yet it now appears that Mr. Coulson's conduct during those vital years may have been far from clean. It's under investigation, we shall see, but he's already resigned twice over these allegations of hacking. It may be that there is yet more opprobrium yet to be heaped upon his shoulders.
All right, Paul, it'll be interesting to see how this debate develops. Thanks very much indeed. Paul Brennan in London.